So, did you ever hear of the phenomenon known as Schrodinger's pants? It's the idea that I might have pants on or I might not. But until you find out, it's a state of limbo and flux, and you'll never know. Anyways, hi, how y'all doing? I'm Taylor. It's fine, it's rigged, it's everything else. It's 2023, and this is my top 10 list of comics from 2022, from last year. I'm a little late doing this because, well, I had a hard time figuring out what books to put on here. I don't think it was a great year for comics. I don't think it was bad, but I do think other years were better. Like 2021, I thought was amazing. I had a very easy time picking my list. This year, not so much. It's been uneven. I don't know if that's like printing supplies or paper supplies or I'm just old and goddamn cranky. That's probably the most likely explanation, but I had a rough time. Also, I don't have any of the comics in front of me. I'm going to edit. I mean, rudimentarily. I'll put up a thingy here or a thingy here with the cover of one of the issues or whatever. And a 10, so you can fast forward and then wreck my algorithm and screw up my viewing hours and all that kind of crap just to see if the favorite comics you like are on the list. Because that's how YouTube works, right? Anyways, I'm not going to put up thumbnails for these honorable mentions. I've got a couple. First, Dark Spaces Wildfire. I really liked it. It was a miniseries, Scott Snyder and Hayden Sherman. It dealt with like women prisoners in a work release program in the wildfires of California. And money heist that goes wrong, and it was a lot of fun. Next, Junkyard Joe. It's only 3 issues in. It's Jeff Johns and Gary Frank on the art. I didn't do any research on these honorable mentions, people. But I really enjoyed this series as well. It's set in the world of Noctera? No, it's set in the world of Geiger, see? I'm a pro. I'm a goddamn pro. It's set in the world of Geiger, and the first issue I liked, but I didn't really grab me. And then issues 2 and 3 took a really big swing, and plot-wise, theme-wise, and everything else, and I've enjoyed it since then. So, Junkyard Joe. Third, Nice House on the Lake. It's a glacially slow-paced horror book. It's James Tynion. Can't remember the damn artist right now, but whatever. You can write it down in the comments and let me know how much of a moron I am for forgetting the name. And you can also say, goddamn, Taylor is horrible, and I hated the ending. I get that. I liked it. I thought it stuck the landing. I just thought it took way too long to get to the landing, so that's why it's on the honorable mention list. And then we have Reckless by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I really like that series. It's like a series of hardbound comic noir novels and graphic novels. I'm up to like 5 now. I read 4 of them. I'm one behind. But the one I read in 2022, do I have it here? No, I don't because I'm lazy. But yeah, Reckless by Jesus Christ, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Honorable mention. And then number 10. Maybe I'll just wave my hands like this so I know where to put the edits because I'm really lazy. All right. And I actually took notes, people. I took notes because I'm a moron. And like I said, I struggled with this list and I had a hard time with it. So we actually have a Tom King book at number 10. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I think it technically came out in 2021, but it wrapped up, I believe, this year. And the trade paperback came out this year, and that's how I read it. I read it collected. I borrowed it digitally from a library, which is great. It's a great resource if you ever want to read comics and not pay for them because you're a cheap fucker. Library. That's what it's there for. But it's written by Tom King, art by Bilquis Evely. I really enjoy Bilquis's art, and I might be butchering the first name. I apologize. But it's like a sketchy kind of 70s sci-fi feel to the art, kind of a heavy metal style to the artwork, which I really thought worked. And it's a Supergirl story, who's a character I admittedly did not give a rat's ass about before this. And that's what Tom King can be good at. He can be really good at giving new life to obscure characters. And when he does it well, it's great. When he does it bad, it's Rorschach. It's Strange Adventures with Adam Strange. It's the other crap I've hated by him. But I like this book. It's told mostly from the point of view of Ruthie, who's an alien whose parents, I believe, were killed. Here's the thing. I don't remember all the details. I read these things pretty quickly, and then I just kind of go emotionally. But yeah, it's her parents are killed, and she's narrating the story, which helps, I think, in some ways, because it gives an outsider's look at Supergirl, which is nice. In other ways, it's a little bit verbose, and that's why it's kind of at number 10. It's kind of like, and the lettering, which I don't remember the letter, it just kind of bugs me a little bit on that. But it does differentiate Supergirl from Superman in a pretty interesting way. Like, Superman came to Earth as a baby, and didn't experience Krypton at all. Supergirl grew up on Krypton and experienced Krypton and then got shunted off to Earth. So, like, her experiences are different. Her mindset's different. Her outlook's different. And it starts with her getting shit-faced at a bar under some red sun where she can go get drunk on her 21st. I don't know if that necessarily fits the character arc, but it's a clever enough way to start the story. So I didn't mind it. But yeah, if you're looking for something that kind of revitalizes Supergirl and makes her kind of like into a badass and not just kind of Superman's crappy cousin, give it a whirl. At number 9, another DC book. I mean, I've got a few DC books on this list, amazingly enough. We have Rogues. Rogues. I won't remember to do that for all 10. Written by Josh Williamson, art by Leo Max. It's a DC Black Label book about over-the-hill villains. Captain Cold, Magenta, Trickster, Golden Glider, Bronze Tiger, and Mirror Master. And I had to write that down because I didn't memorize all of them. Because I didn't. Did anyone even know who Magenta and Bronze Tiger actually were before this? No. But it's old villains that are convinced to do one last heist by Captain Cold. And Captain Cold's a jackass. He's a mean, old, bitter man, and he's acts like it. He acts like life is not how it turned out, how he has wished, and he's trying to have one last thing to set things right in his mind. It's an interesting character study, mostly about Captain Cold, but it does involve some of the other teammates as well. Basically, they're trying to steal gold from Gorilla Grodd's kingdom. Shit goes horribly wrong, and it's a fun little adventure. I love Leo Max's art on this. It's really subtly colored, and it's kind of cartoony, but in a way that fits the story. I don't want to spoil it for you. It is only 4 issues. I believe it's going to be collected. If you can hunt it down. Otherwise, it's a library, people. But yeah, number 9, Josh Williamson, Rogues. Solid story. And I don't love Josh Williamson a lot of the time. I goddamn hated Dark Crisis. And I some of his stuff just has bugged the ever little crap out of me. But credit where credit is due. I like Rogues a lot. Number 8, Mazebook by Jeff Lemire. This came out at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, but it's collected this year. And it's my goddamn 10 list. I can make the rules. Last year I had more strict rules where it all had to come out in 2021, but whatever. I'm older and looser. It's fine. Mazebook, written and art by Jeff Lemire. It's a 5-issue story collected in trade. It's about loss. It's about a father that loses his daughter to an illness and is having trouble dealing with it. It's heartfelt. It's grief-stricken. It's just kind of a sad, poignant tale. And I'm going to say the word poignant probably about 4 or 5 times in this review too. Or in this list. I apologize. It's my word of 2022 into 2023. But it really got me. And I'd sort of forgotten about it because it was the beginning of the year. But I was reminded of it by watching a couple other people's review channels and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, that actually was pretty good. And there's literal and figurative mazes in the book. There's visual trickery and visual storytelling elements that really work that I don't really want to spoil that Lemire does. And then the ending at the center of any maze, without spoiling it, you have to if you know anything about mythology and mazes, the ending fits in several ways. And then if you don't, it'll still be an effective ending because it wraps up the story well, and it really is. It's Jeff Lemire. It's the most Lemire of the Lemire books that came out last year. He's really good at writing about loss and lost children or children lost or that kind of thing. It's a kind of a trope with him at this point, but it fits and it's great. And so yeah, number 8, that was Mazebook. Number 7, we have Swamp Thing. I wrapped up this last year. It's written by Ron V, art by Mike Perkins, coloring by Mike Spicer, John Spicer, whichever one wasn't the old Speaker of the House under Trump. One of the Spicers. They're not really, I don't believe, but. It started in 2020, maybe 2021. I can't remember. They took a break. It was a 16-issue run. It wrapped up in 2022. If it hasn't all been collected, it probably will be. It introduced a new Swamp Thing, Levi Kamai, and his brother, and there was a brotherly dynamic that I really liked because it wasn't like brotherly love necessarily. It was brotherly jealousy and rivalry. And there's a lot of dichotomies in this book. There's machines, including mechanisms and technology, and the new Parliament of Gears, which was introduced, versus the Green Parliament of the Green, which is Swamp Thing. There's progress. There's humanity versus everything else. There's brother versus brother. There's the world versus humans. I mean, there's a lot of that going on there. It's Ram V. got this like creepy gothic vibe that really is accentuated by Mike Perkins' like gritty dark art. The coloring gets a little bright sometimes for my liking, but I don't hate it. The Spicer's coloring, it's very vibrant, and it's not what you'd expect. Like a Swamp Thing book, you kind of expect it muddy and dark and grim in the coloring department, and it's not that. It's got some really vibrant purples and blues and lots of vibrant hues in it. It's a reluctant hero's journey, starring a new Swamp Thing. This new Swamp Thing, spoilers a little bit, didn't die at the end of it all, so we got a new Swamp Thing. And it's really good. Another DC book. And it's been a surprisingly heavy DC list this year. Although, is that it for it? Yeah, that's it for DC. Is it? It is. I had to scroll up. All right, next. Number 6. We have Public Domain by Chip Zdarsky. This, I guess, first started on his Substack. I don't subscribe to his Substack. It's a paid newsletter kind of thing where you can support your artists and writers and stuff. I think it's a great idea. I just haven't found anybody that I supported because a lot of them will do what Chip did. Started on Substack and then released it in print. And I'm like, oh, I can have the print. I will just get the print. And it's basically a comic about F is for family. It doesn't seem like that at first. It seems like it's about this creator named Sid Dallas who created this superhero named the Domain. And in this world, it's the Superman, it's the Batman, it's the Spider-Man. It's the ultimate comic book creation in this world. And it's about a fight between the creator and the company. And so there's a lot of similarities between DC and Marvel and like the Superman and Joe Siegel and Schuster and Batman with Botfinger and Bill Kane and all these characters that are owned by the company and the creators are not necessarily given their due. That's the one level of it. But then it's also about a family dealing with the creator, Sid Dallas, the two sons especially dealing with the legacy that their father has created. And the father's still around. And then you have this, first it feels like the hero of the story, one of the brothers, and then you find out, nope, he's probably one of the bigger fuck-ups of it all. And it's an interesting twist. It's kind of a quiet little book. It's not finished yet, and normally I would probably not put it on my list. But 5 issues in, I really enjoyed it, and I really liked what's set up thus far. So, Public Domain. You could either probably find it on Chip's Substack, or it's probably easy in the back bins. I don't know if it's collected in a trade paperback or not, but whatever. And number 5. I can do this with fingers, right? I could count. I learned that in kindergarten, probably. We have Crimson Cage by John Lees and Alex Cormack. It's a wrestling book. Spoilers, not the only wrestling book on this list. And here's the thing. I don't give a rat's ass about pro wrestling. I haven't watched it since I was a kid when there was Hulk Hogan and, who else was on there? They got the rubber bands on his face and Andre the Giant. I can't remember their names. They had a Saturday morning cartoon I like better than the wrestling anyways. But I haven't paid attention to wrestling, so it's not like I'm a wrestling fanatic and love these comics. But Crimson Cage is set in like the South in 1984, and it stars Chuck Frenzy, a wrestler who's kind of down on his luck and a bit of a schlub who will do anything to win the title in whatever wrestling league or whatever the hell that's called they're in. And what that basically is, and not basically what it is, it's an adaptation of Macbeth set in the world of wrestling. And it doesn't feel like it should work, but it really does. Alex Cormack's art is like just sketchy and dirty and kind of gross. And there's a lot of violence and betrayal and gruesome, grim visceralness to the story and to the art. And it's about this guy that'll do everything to win at the ultimate cost, including murder and betrayal. And I think I've said that already before. Whatever. I'm repeating myself. There's also Lady Macbeth, his wife Charlene, which if that's not the most southern 1984 wrestling name, I don't know what is. But I really liked it. I think it's 5 issues, wraps up well. If you know the story of Macbeth, you're going to know how it ends. If you don't, it's a good jumping off point, on point for Shakespeare, because you'll be tricked into reading high, fancy, highfalutin literature while reading a comic. Comics are for learning, kids, and for bloody, gutty, gory, murderous wrestling destruction. Number 4, we have Ice Cream Man by W. Maxwell Prince with art by Martin Morazzo. If you've not had a chance, and this is a shout out to my buddy, Adrian, Actual Dracula, just had a fantastic interview with Martin Morazzo on his channel. I'm not going to probably remember to leave a link, but just look up Actual Dracula on YouTube and go watch the interview. It's fantastic. He's a heck of an artist, great human being, like an hour and a half long, just intimate, great interview. But I'm not about that. This is about the comic Ice Cream Man. It's an anthology series. It started off as like a pure kind of horror series. I've not read many of the first issues. I read the first one, and then I kind of jumped on about issue number 25. And I've been loving it ever since. And a lot of the reasons I love it is because it's kind of shifted away from pure horror. Horror books tend to bore the crap out of you after a bit because like once you get over the shock and the guts, what's left a lot of the times. But what Maxwell Prince and W. Maxwell Prince and Martin Morazzo have really done have crafted these one-and-done stories that are just about humanity. It's about loss. It's about one story I especially liked is like life as a father getting older, watching his daughter, and at the same time in the same issue, there's the daughter watching the father get older, and like you have these dueling perspectives that like alternate throughout the book, and it's just a really great observation on humanity. There's another one about drug addiction and trying to get clean. There's another one about experimental drugs and cockroaches. There's some Kafka-esque stuff. There's some timey-wimey stuff. There's the latest one I read, which I believe is issue 33, was about the nature of storytelling and like the fact that W. Maxwell Prince would love to tell happy tales, but instead tells wistful, kind of sad, with tinges of horror. They don't all end all awfully. There are some happy endings to this book, and like I think it's really grown into something special. Every issue I look forward to and I like it, and that's a rarity for me. Like there's even some of my favorite books I'm like think have bad issues, but I cannot think of a single weak issue of Ice Cream Man that I've read in the recent past, and so it's a really good book. Number 4. Number 3, I did not actually review this one. There's 2 on the list that are coming up that I've not reviewed on my channel. So let me know if you'd like me to review either number 3 or spoilers number 2, because I read them at the very end of the year, and so maybe that's why they're this high, and maybe that's just kind of, I think, how memory works. You know, when the things are fresh in your head, you're like, tend to rank it either higher or lower because you just, it sticks with you. And so maybe it's unfair. I don't care. It just, these 2 books that I'm going to talk about next really hit me. And some of it was I was really looking to read more shit at the end of the year because I didn't think I had enough for a top 10. And I didn't think I'd like some stuff. So I was like, let me just see if I can find some really good books to read. And thankfully I did. And so that number 3 we have It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth by Zoe Thorogood. And this is a book that I also read from the library. Zoe, I'm sorry I didn't buy it from you. I probably will because I think it's worth owning. It's a fairly thick boy autobiographical comic. It's about 6 months in Zoe's life. And it's not going to be for everyone. If you're triggered by thoughts of suicide and depression, definitely do not read this book because she's very open about those feelings, and like it's a major theme in her life at this point. And so she uses art as a means of survival. Basically, she draws at this comic and she's like clutching to whatever can keep her going. And there's the autobiographical book tends to be that. She also has friends she latches on with that she's sometimes good to, sometimes horrible to. There's talks about her going to her first convention and hooking up with another comic creator that doesn't go necessarily the way you'd expect. It's snarky. It's funny. It kind of reminds me a lot of some of the 90s indie comics that came out, like Chester Brown's work, like like the Playboy or Seth or some of these. But it's like that through like Zoe's eyes and like a newer era. So it's a different book. She's got some great drawing chops. She's got some fun stuff to say, even in the midst of all the kind of sadness. And I thought it's a really special book. I really recommend checking it out. So It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth. That's number 3. Number 2, and this is book 2. The book is not done yet. It's Ed Brubaker again. And this one I did not read digitally. I actually do have this one. But I'm going to probably put up a graphic too. But it's a small little boy. The frustrating part about this is these little volumes come out once a year, near as I can tell, or that's the release date thus far. This is Friday, book 2, on a cold winter's night. It's written by Ed Brubaker, art by Marcos Martin. And what it is it's sort of a send-up, not really a send-up. Take young adult novels like Encyclopedia Brown or Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys. Maybe some of those are real young adult, but like that idea of like young kids solving mysteries and then make it grown up and add mysticism to it. And that's Friday. It's Friday Fitzhugh is the sort of sidekick to Lancelot Jones. Lancelot Jones is the stand-in for Encyclopedia Brown, the brilliant know-it-all boy detective that the sheriff loves and all this stuff. So like it starts with the tropes of like all the youth-oriented stories, and then it just takes violent, grown-up, dark turns and adds some supernatural to it. I don't want to spoil it for you. I think you can also find this. I'm not sure if I don't think Ed Brubaker has a Substack, but he's got a way to find it digitally if you want to read it digitally. Otherwise, I had a tricky time hunting this down. I know you can get it on the Devil at his Amazon, but like 3 or 4 LCSs I had to just didn't have it in stock. I finally found it at one of them around here. It's worth picking up. It's a fairly quick read, but I'm not holding that against it. I think it's gorgeous. I love Marcos Martin's art on it. He's got a really thin, delicate line work that kind of belies this sort of evil nature of this story. And I love I love when Ed Brubaker's writing noir. And this is noir, but it's noir plus. And that's why I ranked this higher than Reckless, which was on the honorable mentions list, because I think there's like really could be something special. It's something I could see getting adapted into another medium. I don't think it has to. When I try to read comics, I try and read them for what they are and not for what they could be turned into, because I think that's a bad way to go about it. I mean, you collect however you want to collect. Spec on books, do all that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I want to read the books and enjoy what I'm looking at while reading it. I do have spec books. Look, I've got a crap load of short boxes behind me. But I want to enjoy, Jesus Christ, how many times in a row am I going to say enjoy? Friday, book 2. Number 2 on the list, really good. Pick it up. And number 1, if you follow my channel at all, or you've heard me in discussions, or you've heard me in talking, this should not be a surprise. Number 1, Do a Powerbomb, Daniel Warren Johnson. It's the second wrestling book on the list, top wrestling book on the list. It's poignant. There, I said the word again. It's fantastic. It's leaps and bounds above everything else this year. Like, at least for me, it like hit me in the feels, and it just kind of grabbed me by the metaphorical junk and didn't let me go. Like I mentioned before, do not care about pro wrestling, but this book stars Lana Steele-Rose, and basically she watches her mother die in the ring, a tragic death to like the villain of the family. The mom, I can't remember their mom's name, but she was fighting Cobra Sun. And Cobra Sun, who's like the arch nemesis of the mother, because the mother's a pro wrestler, gets killed by Cobra Sun in the ring. And that's the tragic opening to the book. And you're like, holy crap, that's sad. And it goes from there. The reveal issue number 2 is going to strike you right. It'll amaze you if you read it in a single issue. If you read it collected, it might not have that same kind of like, fuck, I can't wait till next month, because you can just turn the page and you're at next month. But it's great. The art is dynamic. It kind of reminds me of manga. It's very action-oriented, very kind of thick, heavy, inky lines, fluid, just kind of fits the subject matter. And Daniel Johnson, I've read Murder Falcon, I've read Beta Ray Bill, and I've liked both of those a lot, but this is my favorite book of his. He takes these like absurd notions, because what I did not mention in the first sort of summary is that pro wrestler Lana Steele-Rose gets offered to go fight in the necro world by a necromancer and teams up with Cobra Sun to try and bring Lana's mother back from the dead in an undead multi-world wrestling match where everyone thinks wrestling is real and not fake. So that's the rest of the setup. It's ridiculous, and it shouldn't work, but holy crap, does it. It really makes you like kind of appreciate comics as a medium, because I don't know any other way that this story could have been told and worked as well as this. It's beautiful. It's sad. It's funny. It has like great cliffhanger moments. It's got great action sequences, and the last battle, as it were, it's like wow. Like it's just kind of it wraps up in a very solid way. It's I think the best work Daniel Warren Johnson's ever done. It's the best book of the year. If you can find it collected, I'd say get it collected, just because I think it'll be a nice artifact to have if you're into that thing. Otherwise, I'm sure you can find it digitally, probably at the library. You can probably still collect the single issues. But I know I'm not alone in the community in appreciating this book. I know other people have had it in their top 10, some lower, some higher. Well, not higher than number 1. But for me, it was the best book I read this year. I look forward to it every month. I was not disappointed any of the months. And I would love the chance to sit down and chat with Daniel Warren Johnson, who by all accounts is just a super nice guy, super friendly, and just really into what he does, into his family, and into everything else. And I would, yeah. So Daniel, if you happen to somehow randomly see this and you want to come on and talk about comics, or try to talk me into the fact that wrestling's not hot garbage, or why you think Optimus Prime is the best Transformer, I would love to sit and talk with you. But yeah, that's my favorite book of the year. It's, like I said, not even close. I loved it. Everything about it. I love the covers. I love the character design. I love the villains. I loved the over-the-top nature of it. I love the ridiculous dichotomy of it. I love the fact that it made me happy and sad and like literally shed tears while reading it. It was the best book of the year. So I mean, maybe overall it was not an awful year for comics. The ones on this list I do think are pretty solid. If I were to drop any, it would probably be Supergirl, and that's just because it's kind of verbose, but it's still a good book, and it made me like care about Supergirl, so it made the list. There you have it. What have you read? What is on your top 10 list? What did I miss from 2022? What are you looking for in 2023? Let me know. Comments down below. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe. I am on my way to 1,000 followers. I'm going to have a video that's coming out soon that's tentatively going to be called the crankiest 1,000 follower giveaway ever. Some spoilers. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if I can pull that one off. Because I want to get to 1,000. I want to get monetized. I want to like have advertising pay for the comics and then be able to give books back to you guys, like mystery boxes or something. Or find out fun ways for you to like make me read crap I don't want to read or whatever. Turning around thoughts and notions, just extending this video past its lifetime. That's about it. It's 2023. Let's all not be dicks to each other this year, huh? I'll see ya.